Hello and welcome to another Season 2 episode of Elam's NextGen podcast. I am your host, Pastor Kevin Neville. I am the NextGen director at Elam Fellowship, but as some of you might know, I'm also the family pastor at a church in downtown Rochester, New York called Bethel Christian Fellowship. Today we're going to be talking to one of my former co-pastors, my dear friend, Pastor Max Ramos. And Pastor Max is a worship leader, an executive pastor now, but he used to be a co-pastor, the youth pastor at Bethel, but then God called him to his new assignment. And that's exactly what we're going to do a deep dive on today, asking the question, how do we know when God is moving you to something new? Now, this was recorded a few months ago, and since then, Max has begun his new pastoral position at Encounter Church. And we talk about his transition and God's calling and him following. So let's dive in right now and hear what Pastor Max has to say. So we are here with Pastor Max Ramos, youth pastor at Bethel for at least another week and a half.
Yes.
And then we're losing you, but we're not losing. What did they say? We're not losing a son-in-law. We're gaining a. No, wait, how did that go?
Yeah, we're not losing a daughter. We're gaining a son-in-law.
Right.
Or we're gaining a son.
But in this case, we're not losing a pastor. We're gaining, I don't know. That was dumb.
I see where you're going there.
Yeah, but Max, let's begin. We want to tell a little bit of your story, what God has for you. But the first question I love to ask is, who are you and why should we care?
Well, yeah, I'm Max Ramos, son of Carmen Justiniano and son of Max Ramos Sr. I've always wanted to do that. I love those shows where they're like, I'm Maximus Aurelius' first son, first of my name. I'm the second.
Switched into Game of Thrones here.
Yes, literally. So, no, I'm just a guy just trying to listen and do exactly what I feel God is calling my wife and I to do. You know, it's something that has been a journey. I didn't grow up in church, but then my mom married my stepdad. He was a great influence on us and our family, and we started going to church right around like seven or eight.
Okay.
When I was 7 or 8, and then went to that church till I was about 15, 16, and then I left. Church hurt, whatever that may entail. And then I came to Bethel in late 2011.
So how much of a gap between the two churches?
So I left when I was 15, and I didn't come back to church until I was 18.
So there was those 3 years that really, because of the circumstance and situation.
Yeah, I just was like, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do church anymore. I'm not going to do this God thing anymore because I thought it was a thing to do.
Right.
I was young, and I did church because of my parents. I did church because of my pastor, and I love something that, Pastor David says all the time. He's like, I can say something on stage, but I want you to go home and do your research. And
Right. This is Pastor David Domina.
Yes.
Pastor
Sorry.
at Bethel Church.
Yes. So he's very good at letting people know that, yes, he's done his homework, he's done his research, but it's our job to go into the Word and find out for ourselves, because this is a relationship that we have. So what God is telling him, it's great. But, what God is telling me in my personal life may stir something up so that I can see something great happen.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what was the catalyst that brought you back to church?
It was my wife. So
She wasn't your wife at the time, though.
No. So Tiffany Ramos, shout out. We were dating in high school. She came to Gates Charli her senior year. So this is the 2011-2012 school year.
Right.
She was homeschooled, went to Finney, and then she ended up her last year in Gates. Her family lived in Gates for like 15 years. They still do. And she just sat down with her parents and was like, I just want to try it. I've tried homeschool. I've tried the private school life. I just want to try what it is to be in a public school. Finney, if she would have stayed, her graduating class would have been like 40, 50 students. And when we graduated in Gates, it was well over 300.
Right.
So
she just really wanted to have that full range of
kind of have that full
experience.
range of experience and just kind of see what it was. Because, Gates Charlotte just was in her backyard for 15 years.
Right,
So she's
right.
always heard of it, always seen it. And we met. September comes around, you're a senior, you think you know everybody, you think you know everything, and this new girl walks down the hallway, and it's just like time
Literally
kinda
walked
stopped.
down the hallway, changed your life.
No, literally, I feel like I was like in a High School Musical
Yeah.
movie. It just like the whole like hallway stopped and just was watching her walk down the
Slow
hallway.
motion,
Yeah.
wind machine out of nowhere, hair blowing.
And I told all my homies, I was like, oh, she's mine. And I was like, yeah, right. It was like, they've been with me now for 3 years, so they kind of know me, and I was crazy back then. Still am a little bit, but it's okay. I have got now. And yeah, I was just super persistent. Like from September to when we officially started dating, December 11th, 2011, just super persistent, super just kind of like something's different about her. And we started dating because the Body Shop, which is a building here at Bethel, now it's newly called The Link, but the Body Shop reopened.
Right, which is holy as opposed to the song.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, for sure. So it reopened. They kind of did like just a fresh remodel on it. They did a huge like benefit concert. They brought in a ton of like artists, singers, rappers, poets, dancers.
Oh, wow.
And she invited me to it. And I'm like, okay, cool. It's downtown. I'm not
You
even,
really hadn't been to a church since.
no.
since the
And
church earlier.
and for you listeners, the Body Shop isn't in the church. It's its own separate building. It's across the street. So like when we drove up to the Body Shop, I saw Bethel, but it's in a different parking lot. So I'm thinking this is something completely different.
Right.
I'm thinking it's like a venue.
Bethel's this massive block-sized church downtown Rochester, but it's across the street almost where all the bars and the nightclubs are.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm thinking, oh, this is just like like another venue downtown.
Right.
And I walked in, and
So she tricked you.
she did. She's smart.
Bait and switch.
Bait and switch. She's always been smarter than me.
Yeah.
I went there, and from the first time I walked in, just the love that was being poured onto us was amazing, and especially me, just someone that's new, someone that they didn't know. It was just really great. And I think that was kind of the start of me realizing that not every Christian is bad.
Right.
Not everyone that believes in, at the time, this Jesus that was kind of foreign to me. I knew who he was, but he was foreign in the relationship that I was seeking for, because I wasn't doing it for self. I was doing it for other people's gratification of like, oh, Max is doing something, but it's not for Max, it's for someone else.
Right.
And it was just great. And I was like, wow, like these people are really nice, and it was a difference. I was going to a predominantly black church and going to a predominantly white church. I was like, what are these people going to know anything about me?
Right.
And they just had their arms opened and was like, hey, we want to just love on you. We just want to show you the true meaning of love, the love that is given and nothing required in return.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So Tiffany grew up in Bethel.
Yeah.
And then you joined in as an older teenager, but you jumped right in.
Yep.
How long was it before? And it sounded like you sort of made that commitment back to Christ because of this. How long was it before you kind of realized there was a calling there for you?
Yeah. So December 2011, we went to the party at the Body Shop, and then in 2012 we graduated in June, and we sat down with the youth pastor at the time, now the executive pastor of Bethel, Pastor Ron Domina. We sat down with him in like July and said, hey, we want to do this right. Tiff and I knew that we were getting serious. She or I weren't going to college. We both did like trade stuff.
Right.
So we weren't going anywhere far. We weren't going anywhere for 4 years. It was just 2-year stuff, and it was local. And we were like, we know that God is calling us to be together. It's not one of those things where I saw her in the hall and was like, God told me that you're going to be my wife. It definitely wasn't one of those
I didn't
things.
get the memo. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't one of those.
Yeah. No, but yeah, you're both, even though you were young, you knew.
We just knew. We knew. So we sat down with him and just asked for guidance. And he was like, well, I think you guys would do really well at being youth leaders.
Wow.
And I'm like, youth leader?
And this is like a year and a half or so after.
Yeah, I'm 18. I graduated. Tiffany's 17 at this time. And I'm like, youth leaders, like, I don't know anything about kids. I guess I have a ton of nephews and nieces, but youth leader. So that upcoming school year, in September, we just dove in. We just dove in and just really just started to figure things out on our own, and really just started to see the other youth leaders that are a little bit older than us, just kind of mentoring us, kind of just taking us under their wing. Same thing with Pastor Ron, and then Pastor Jesse Tanner. He was the family ministries pastor at the time. And I would say,
I know with Pastor Jesse, you guys have a soft spot in his heart, So I think it was beautiful that God really set you up with these mentors right from the beginning.
And that was something that I lacked, and something that I really loved about Bethel was that, unlike where I came from, the mentorship here was amazing.
Right.
Like, it necessarily wasn't like an official program, like a Big Brother.
Right.
It was just something that happened organically out of love, and just like, hey, I want to take you under my wing. And it was just through their actions and through what they said was what really kind of gravitated me back to Jesus and ultimately back to my calling. Because I've been prophesied to, several times when I was 10, 13, back again at 15 and 16, I was going to be a pastor. I was going to be a lead pastor.
And this is way before you had any.
Yeah, and this is in the prime time of kind of like that. I don't want to be in church anymore because growing up, when I started going to church at 7 years old, it was church like every day.
Right.
It was like literally service all day Sunday. Wow. You would go home, get some food, come back at 5, and then you're there till like 10 o'clock.
There's no complaining that went over 15 minutes.
Oh yeah, here, listen, if we don't get out at 11:30, people start to complain. I'm like, what? You don't know what it's
sweating like. To leave the faith.
Yes. So yeah, it was just really
We're
great.
joking, of course, Bethel.
Yes, absolutely. We love you.
We're also kind of not. Okay, so God gave you this word. He gave you, you might have seen it coming, but as you're diving into this ministry, your heart is for the youth, but God starts enlarging your vision. How did that come about, and in what sort of way has he been enlarging it?
Honestly, during COVID, and I watch a lot of podcasts and I watch a lot of pastors preach, and COVID was a rough time for a lot of people. But for a lot of people, it opened up a lot of doors as well. It opened up the idea where you don't have to be in a box to be successful. You don't have to live in what the norm tells you to live in to be successful or have a great life. And during COVID, Tiffany and I, my wife, we started to watch Transformation Church, led by Pastor Mike Todd and Natalie Todd in Oklahoma. And he did this series years back, and but when we were watching during COVID, he revamped it, and it's called Crazy Faith. And it's just something that I've been living out in the last 3 years. I'm like, Lord, give me and let me operate in crazy faith.
So what's sort of the premise of Crazy Faith, if you had to sum it up in a sentence or two?
Living reckless for God and knowing that every step is going to be taken care of because you're in alignment with his word.
Wow. And was this, so this was around the time you really saw that, God was setting you up for larger pastor positions, lead pastor in the future, but steps along the way?
Which is crazy because a lot of times us as Christians will pray those very dangerous prayers.
Yeah.
But then when God opens up that door and is like, all right, go ahead. You're like, whoa. God, wait. What
But
are
the
you
bridge
doing?
is out. It's like
Yes.
it's a big pit.
Yes.
What am I supposed to do?
You're like, wait, Lord, I said that, but not said that. You should know. Read my mind.
I meant one day, Lord, not now.
Yes, it's kind of like, when you're talking to your wife, all husbands would know this. When they say, hey, honey, are you hungry? And she says no. And you go get food and she's like, wait, where's mine? Yeah. And it's like, oh, sorry. I was supposed to be
I
a mind
wasn't
reader.
hungry when you asked me, but I was hungry when you got the food.
Exactly.
So now's the time.
Yep.
So that's sort of the big question I want to ask you. So you're at Bethel. We love you. You love it here. The people are amazing. They've mentored you. Your wife grew up here. This is your foundation. And yet, even in that, so in an unhealthy environment, you could kind of say, yeah, it's time for me to move on. It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
But even in a healthy environment, when God starts moving on your heart for the next step, how do you know when it's time to stay or time to go? Because I know you've been sort of on that journey.
Yeah. It's definitely something that is not easy. But one thing that I've been really just kind of adopting this idea and just this lifestyle is that I'm addicted to Jesus. I'm addicted to listening to what he says because I've messed up so many times and not listening to him that I've been having to crawl myself out of things that I know that if I listened the first time, I would have been okay.
Right.
And when people or myself in the beginning was like, oh, I'm leaving something, and it's I'm not leaving anything, I'm following.
Right. I love that. Say that again.
I'm not leaving something, I'm following.
Right. And that's a whole different mentality.
Yes.
Isn't it? One, you're running away from it.
Yes.
The other one, you're just God's leading and you're on his trail.
Yeah. And that's where I found true peace, is knowing that I'm not leaving Bethel. I'm not leaving the church, because we are all the church. We are all the community. And knowing that I'm following the Almighty is what has brought my wife and I true peace, is understanding that, yes, it's going to be hard. Because when stuff is going great in my wife and I's lives in the last 3 years, life has been great. Like Bethel's been awesome with our career choices and just God really blessing us to bless others and just really kind of stepping into what we felt that was like kind of, not our peak of ministry, but we're like, hey, we feel like God is doing some great things. And then he's like, all right, you prayed those dangerous prayers of having crazy faith. If you are really for this, now follow me.
Right.
And it's one of those things where I'm like, Lord, for the rest of my life, I will forever follow you, no matter how hard or how difficult.
And I love that, really keying into his voice, because, it's not just about opportunity. I mean, there's been, and you were sharing before, you've had opportunities before.
Yes, yeah.
But what makes I think we always know, when God says go, I want to go. But, it's a lot harder sometimes to say when God says stay,
Yes.
I have to stay.
Yeah.
And so you've kind of experienced both. So what was the difference between the time when you've had the opportunity, but it was a stay and
yeah, so my first time in ministry on staff was 4 years ago. So I've been doing volunteer work with the worship team and youth since 2012. But officially on staff for 4 years. And the first year I was on staff as a pastor and it got announced and people kind of knew. Within 3 months, I had a job offer.
Wow.
And the first couple job offers, I'm like, I'm not even prepared and ready to do this at Bethel, let alone go give my resume, which would just be blank, to another church. So I would say,
just give them a piece of paper.
No, literally here. I worked at, this car wash, I guess. But yeah. So the first couple of times was just being very practical, knowing that like I'm not equipped. Like I'm doing this because I'm stepping out of faith. Like even early on, 4 years ago, before I like really dove into that crazy faith mentality, I was just very practical, and I've always been practical. Knowing that like, yeah, I'm not gonna make myself look dumb. I'm not gonna go to somewhere and just because they're giving me quote unquote a better job title or more money, I'm not gonna do that. Right. So the first couple of job offers were just practically me being like, yeah, I'm not ready. I'm not in the position to even accept something like this. It was very generous. It was very nice.
Yeah, and it's honoring,
It is.
but
It
you
is.
knew that you had the God's wisdom to say not yet.
Yep.
Hold back.
And then the last 2 job offers, not including the one that I accepted, the last 2 were a little bit more recent within the last year and a half. And some of them were very generous offers. But my wife and I, since we've been married for 7 years now, we said, and we made this vow to each other and God, we do not move unless we feel at peace. And sometimes it's really hard because what they're saying and what they're offering practically, and just them understanding kind of what we're trying to do, we're like, ooh, Lord, are you sure? Because I can feel that peace right now.
I've had those nights where I'm saying, Lord, I heard you, I think, but I'm not sure why.
Yep. So that's kind of the progression. It was very practical. Then, Lord, we don't feel at peace, and we didn't move because there was no peace there.
Right. What tell us about this new position you're moving into? What makes it so exciting for you guys? And what is this? What is going to be your new position and placement?
Yeah, so my new position is going to be executive pastor at Encounter Church Rochester. There is an Encounter Church Vegas, which is kind of the big brother.
Which same pastor?
Same pastors, yeah.
Well, pastor team, I guess.
Yeah, pastor team. Yep, Pastor Zach and Rochelle Wexler. They started Encounter just in like a storefront
In Vegas.
and it grew to something beautiful and amazing. And then God called them here to Rochester, so now there's an Encounter Church Rochester, which is super insane. Like when I say it, I grin because I'm just like, Lord, it's
what kind of connection connects Rochester to Vegas?
Yeah.
It's
And
just
it's
the
like
most obscure.
2 people that don't know each other, and yeah, it just shows that God is real, because there's no, for me, I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that God is ordering our steps in the right way.
Right.
So yeah, so we met at a conference that I was the worship director on at Elam. I had
The Oasis conference.
the Oasis
Yeah.
conference. Yep. It was Christian and I led a team, which was awesome, and it was great. And they came the second to last night. They were only going to come one night because their daughter was one of the worship leaders that we had.
Right.
First time I met her, she was awesome. It was her first conference that she led in Rochester, because she only had lived here for like a year and a half, and played drums. And Sarah, the worship leader, she was like, hey, my parents want to meet you. So I met them, shook their hands, and, just very nice people, I didn't even know they were pastors at the time. She was like, just come meet my folks and my family.
Friends.
Just meeting
friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Friends, parents.
Yeah, that's kind of, after, from leading conferences, the last couple of nights, people are just there to support, say hi, and you're just hugging, smiling. And, I kind of feel like I'm a celebrity in those moments. I'm just like, hey, how's it going? Picture here.
But isn't that just like God to, almost these random connections or random meetings that God starts saying, well, this is, you guys don't know it at this moment, but we have our path.
Oh,
God's
absolutely.
doing that path. Which is another sort of question I have, or just a comment. God really set you up in this position because He's brought godly mentors into your life, and this is really looking to be another same situation where it's saying, well, let's take the next step, but it's through mentoring, not just yourself, but with Tiffany too, because
Absolutely.
I know they really work as a husband and wife pastoral team.
Absolutely.
So what is your thoughts on that sort of way that God's been preparing you for further and further ministry?
Yeah,
mentoring.
It literally goes back to 2012. I had Pastor Ron Domina be my first mentor. And then in ministry, there were definitely, I have brothers, and there were definitely uncles that, took care of me growing up. But as in ministry, Pastor Ron Domina was my first mentor. Then it was Jesse. And then, Pastor Kevin is a mentor of mine.
Thank you.
And then, and also with the mentorship, they're role models, because I'm seeing things that I'm like, okay, I'm going to apply that in my life.
Right.
Because I've been able to have the privilege to see people doing it the right way for a long time,
Right.
but then asking them, hey, how did you get here? So then I hear the steps and the progressions. I'm like, okay, I make note of like, okay, if that comes up,
Right.
I kind of have like the tools in my tool belt
Right,
to kind of
right.
navigate
I've
through
learned
that.
this through this, and it's sort of interesting too. I know when people that have mentored me, sometimes you see it, you learn their way, but you learn their way knowing that you won't do it that way.
Yep.
But being able to make those decisions because of your specific personality,
Absolutely.
skill set.
Yeah. And then after you, God just literally, it's like without even me asking, it's just those divine appointments. It's like in those markers in my life and ministry, when things got kind of big or kind of got overwhelming, God has been like, here you go. And I was getting to that point. I'm like, Lord, I've been doing this for 4 years. Is this what you're calling me for the rest of my life?
Right.
And if so, give me clear just provision, give me peace, give my wife peace. And then I met Pastor Zach and Rochelle Wexler at the Oasis conference at Elam. And it was just something different. Like it was kind of those things where you meet someone and you feel like you've known them for your whole life.
Right.
And they saw me doing one of the things that I love to do most, and just worshiping. And they were like, hey, we would just love to talk to you. And the first couple meetings with them was nothing to do with just like ministry. It was just life.
Right.
Just us talking and us getting to know each other. And then I went to their church for the first time about 8 months ago, and I played, and my wife didn't come with me this time, because normally when I play at a church for the first time, I kind of like scope it out, see how it is. And my wife is very introverted, so she would just like sit in the parking lot and watch it online. She wouldn't even dare go in.
Right.
She doesn't.
Because you're meeting a 1,000 new strangers.
Absolutely. So I played for the first time, and it was just one of those things where as I'm playing, I'm kind of having an out-of-body experience, because up until 8 months ago, I've played at probably well over 20 churches, for events, conferences, Sunday mornings, either helping a church out, kind of help them, build their worship team, or just, be in community with churches for a season. But this is the first time that I'm just like, and I got emotional while I'm playing, and people are like, oh, the Holy Spirit is moving in him, which he was, just not in the way that people thought, like, the song was getting to me. It was literally, I was like feeling like I was having that kind of experience, that I was just looking at everything from a like kind of outward perspective. And I'm like, Lord, what are you doing? And I literally asked that question, and I'm like, Lord, what are you doing? And it's kind of one of those things where he knew what I was asking. Right. I was like, Lord, because we mentioned before that I had 4 job offers. Right. And I've never felt this. And I played at 20 churches.
Was it like a feeling of there's something different here, or a feeling like almost coming home?
Yeah. And my wife, she said it so beautifully a couple weeks ago, and she was like, the first time she came there, it just felt like you were walking back home from college. And the first time you come back to your home, your parents' home, there's just this peace. You sit on the couch that you've sat on for your whole life. You know where the snacks are. You kind of know all the nuances of the house. And we just felt that. We felt like we knew the nuances of that house. And
it's beautifully stated. I love that.
Yeah, it was just great. And then yet again, without any type of ties, without any type of conversation of me working there or doing ministry with them full time, the first time my wife went into a service, there's 2 services. I played at the first one and the second one, and she came for the second one. And in between the services, Pastor Rochelle was like, hey, is your wife coming today? Because this is my second time playing there. And I was like, absolutely. And she was like, do you mind if I like talk to her after service? I was like, absolutely. So service is going on, and at the end of service they have a ministry time, a lot like Bethel. And there was ministry time, there's prayer happening, and I was sitting next to my wife and kind of just praying and just feeling that again, just feeling that tug. And it's almost like a practical gravitational pull that I'm feeling, right? And it's just so weird, but so great at the same time. And Pastor Rochelle came up to my wife and said, God has told me that I need to mentor you.
Wow.
And my wife just broke down. And without them knowing that, like, my wife also needed this.
Right.
Because my wife and I both do ministry together. It's not just Max. Yes, Max is up on the stage most of the time. But Tiffany is it. Without Tiffany, there's no Max.
Right.
And the kids see that. The youth group that we lead, What's Up Nexus, they see that Tiffany runs the show.
Yeah.
Max is just loud.
We love Max, but we know the things get done
Listen,
because of what Tiffany
If it was
and
not
Eunice,
Tiffany, come on now.
Yeah.
God bless them, because I would triple, quadruple book myself.
Yeah, well, that's the wisdom to use the people that know what they're doing to do
Absolutely.
things that are beyond us. But okay, so the last question, but it's a big one. We're talking to youth pastors and kids pastors that might be in a ministry that everything's going great. They actually love it, and it might even be home, but they're starting to get a stirring in their heart. And I think knowing been through the process myself, there's guilt and questions. What about the kids? What about this? Am I turning my back? Are they going to think I don't love them? What have you learned during this season about leaving well or knowing the timing that you could pass on to youth pastors or kids pastors that are starting to feel they want to pursue it but don't, are afraid of what they're leaving behind?
Yeah, for everyone listening, it's going to sound so simple, but I want you to get it. It's truly hearing from God. We did this series with the kids for about 6.5 months, and we've given them tools on how to hear from God.
Right.
And each month we've given them tools on, He talks to us through prayer. He talks to us through dreams. He talks to us through worship. He talks to us through numbers. And we just kept going with that. And as we kept going with that, it just kept amplifying in Tiffany's life.
Right.
And I'm like, Lord, you're giving us these ideas and these messages for these kids, but it was for us at the same exact time. And for that person that may be kind of on the edge of like, is it time for me to leave? Is it not? But I want to leave because something seems a little bit better. I say practically write down the pros and cons of everything. I'm a huge person when it comes to writing things down and just being practical and writing the pros and cons of everything that I'm embarking on, especially if it's life-changing.
Right.
But the premise and the basis of what I found success in ministry has been just truly hearing from God and knowing His voice and knowing that like the enemy isn't going to call you to do something great for the kingdom.
Right.
So it's having that clear, concise understanding on what is God calling for your life. And then also I encourage move in peace, because if you have peace, no matter what may come your way, people are like, oh, Max is leaving, he's leaving something good, or he's leaving at a wrong time. And it's exactly what I said earlier. I'm not leaving, I'm just following.
Right.
And if you're mad at me following, then I'll pray for you, but I will forever follow the Almighty.
Right. And as the questions come up, what about the kids? What about the people you're leaving behind, people you're mentoring? There's a faith aspect of this. If this is truly God, then He's truly, you're not abandoning people. He's just setting them up for the next people. I think they're saying, a kid needs about 7 different adult influences in their life to direct the path they're on.
Oh, yeah.
And so, to be able to hand off and leave well is important, but then trusting God for the people that are staying, that He's going to take care of them. But you're leaving a great heritage here, Max, and you're going to create another one. So you and Tiffany, God bless you guys. And I'm fortunate that we're still going to continue, our friendship and working on Saturate and a few other projects together.
Sir.
So. But I'm excited for the days ahead.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us. God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.